your hands on top of your head.
Well, I didn't.
Now!
And I'll bet your mother had a loud bark.
Good morning. This is Morning Coffee with the Chief. I'm your host here on Pop Culture Minefield. You can find us at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time every Tuesday on YouTube and Rumble. Pop Culture Minefield, Morning Coffee with the Chief. You know, you can catch me on X. I do post on X on a variety of political issues at LSD Jordan. And also, you know, I have another show. It's called Briefing with the Chief. Yeah, I'm not that original. Morning Coffee with the Chief, Briefing with the Chief. But on that show, I go over politics, public policy, and what's in the news, and whatever the chief wants to talk about. And I really do have some great shows coming up, including tomorrow's show. It's 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Rumble, Briefing with the Chief. And on that show, I'm gonna have a fellow from the Manhattan Institute. So I'm pretty excited about that because they're the guys who have been fighting the fight to support law enforcement as this negative anti-law enforcement rhetoric has been going on for the last several years. And they point out the broken windows theory. They defend the broken windows theory. And I'm going to have one of the fellows come on, and we're going to go over his book, Criminal Injustice. And he puts a lot of data in there supporting law enforcement and what law enforcement did over the past 20 years. So I'm pretty excited about that because I'm stepping up my guests. I mean, you get a fellow from the Manhattan Institute. That's pretty darn good. You can see at the bottom of the screen, Briefing with the Chief. And it gives you a link to speaker.com. And if you go to that link, you can find all the copies of my show. Now, I did interview Nathan Hochman, who's running against George Gascon. I lined up the DA who just got primaried out in Harris County, Texas, and she is angry. She's mad that the Fair and Just Prosecution folks, of which George Gascon is on the board, and that's the DA in L.A., the Soros-funded DA in L.A., they primaried her out because she wouldn't go left enough. She wouldn't go far enough left for those guys. She didn't believe in just blanket bail, and they primed her out. She's angry. She's going to come on my show, and she's going to talk about how the Soros-funded DAs around the country are now getting organized and how they're taking out political opponents who won't go far enough. That should be a really good show, and I'm looking forward to it. But also, I have a lot of other shows. I did Benghazi, Know the Enemy, and that has gotten a lot of feedback. So if you go to www.speaker.com, you go to Briefing with the Chief on that link that's listed below. You can listen to that show and listen to all of my shows, and you can binge with the Chief, Briefing with the Chief. Now, on this show, we're gonna do the Negotiator, which was released in 1998. But before we do that, I want to talk about the Los Angeles Mission. Now, I just had a meeting with the Los Angeles Mission, and they're talking about what they've done to revamp what they're doing at the mission. Now, they'll still meet the immediate needs of people who are on Skid Row, but they've ramped up and flushed out or shaped out their ability to do long-term recovery for people who want to get off the streets. And this includes anywhere from 90 days to 12 months recovery programs with wraparound services. They do a fantastic job. They've also done outreach where they provide, I was talking about 400,000 meals. They're up to 2 million meals a year that they provide to various people on Skid Rows and further out. So they're trying to meet the needs of not only the people on Skid Rows, but people who are just on the edge, you know, including foster kids, to make sure that they have food. So do me a favor. Go to losangelesmission.org. They do need private money. They get some government money, but most of their money comes from donors like me and you. Go to losangelesmission.org and make a donation today and help out. And I'm hoping to. I just bought a book. It's about homelessness, and it was done by another fellow at the Manhattan Institute. So I'm going to read that while I'm traveling pretty soon here, and hopefully I can get somebody on to talk about that from the Manhattan Institute. People, it's always good, as I've always said, it's a good idea to surround yourself by smarter people than you and interview smarter people than you because, they make you look smart. And speaking of that, I have two great guests today to help me do The Negotiator, the movie Negotiator, which was released in 1998. It's an American action thriller film. And you know what? It's a little bit, it's unbelievable, the storyline, but it is entertaining. And it was directed by F. Gary Gray and stars Samuel L. Jackson and Kevin Spacey. But let's bring on my guests. I guess I'll go in rank order. We got retired Lieutenant John Baylis, who's been on the show before. Like I said, I surround myself with really smart people because they make me look good. How you doing, John? Welcome to the show.
Great, glad to be back.
Glad to be back. All right. And we got, for the first time, we have retired Sergeant Kim Brink from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, and she suggested this movie. And like I said, another really smart person, so she can help me really smart. Right? Hi, Kim. How you doing?
Good morning.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right. So, anyway, so what's going on with you guys? I've been monitoring what's going on. I want to talk a little bit about the Diana Tran thing because I can't not talk about it with you guys.
I'm waiting for her to go to trial.
And for our audience, let me clarify. Diana Tran is somebody that been in the oversight business of police. She's been monitoring and holding us accountable, and she stole the records from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, then used them later on or fire deputy sheriffs illegally. And the Attorney General has filed 11 criminal charges against her. So we're going to talk about corruption in this movie, but that is corruption, right, Kim? That's
absolutely.
And it couldn't happen to a nicer person.
Agreed.
It's funny when you hire and this is something, and I address it on my other show, that is happening around the country, right? The guy in Philly's been sanctioned by a judge for not giving all the information when he indicted a police officer, and that indictment, of course, that collapsed. Right? We just saw Hennepin County, the DA there, the crazy DA there, tried to go after a trooper after 5 different use of force experts said it's no bueno. He did all the right things. He didn't do anything wrong, and the state was going to step in. And then suddenly she drops the case, right? And this is what is going on with these alleged progressive prosecutors. They're displaying a level of corruption. And Diana Tran did this with, remember the Jack Williams case? The deputy sheriff was killed, and then she tried to undermine that conviction to get his killer out of prison. It was only because the prosecutors unit stepped in and shined light on the lies and the misrepresentations of George Gascon, Sarah's funded DA, and his henchperson, Diana Tran. Crazy, right? So we got corruption real life today, and we got corruption in our movie, The Negotiator, with Samuel L. Jackson. So, Kim, I asked you to come on the show and say, hey, give me a movie. What do you want to do? And you said The Negotiator, and you said it's pretty unrealistic. And yeah, the storyline is pretty unrealistic, but it is a fun show. It's got a lot of action in it, right?
Correct. It was entertaining.
It was entertaining, but unrealistic.
For everyday person, it's action, it's nonstop.
Absolutely.
But when you look at Kim, who actually was a crisis negotiator,
yeah,
it's a bunch of fun.
All right, so I was not aware of that, so we got to get into that because I'm reading this. I go, man, I can't remember the crisis negotiator controlling barricades like this.
No.
This much. I mean, it as long as they felt there was an opportunity, it was always good for the incident commander to go with what the negotiator is suggesting, right? So let's talk a bit about that first. So, you get a call of a barricaded suspect. You're a hostage negotiator. What happens when you show up at the scene?
Well, you don't stand outside the door and have a conversation.
That's Hollywood.
Yeah. Yes. And it's very non-glamorous. We set up at a command post. Well, it could be a mile away, could be further. and establish some kind of communication with the suspect, usually by phone, and go from there. But SCB, which is our SWAT team, their lieutenant is usually the incident commander. So they let us do our job, and we have a system on the department, which is it's a great system. SCB can actually hear what's being said on the phone call. It wasn't always like that. It was pretty archaic in the beginning. But we have some amazing negotiators.
Well, I remember doing a few barricades in my life where I was the incident commander. And so I think because one of the things that I was always told is, hey, it's a barricade, you're it. You know, you're the local incident commander is the incident commander. Until somebody of a higher rank rolls in and says, all right, I'm taking over, it's on you.
Yep.
And you make the decisions. So when we talk about the SWAT team rolling in and the crisis negotiator rolling in, technically they're subordinate to the incident commander who's in overall charge until they say, okay, we've reached the end of our rope, you got it, and then SWAT takes over. And this was usually when they exhaust the negotiation as well. SWAT takes over and you do what you got to do. And because that's the process, right? It isn't, the negotiator doesn't come in, it's usually not a lieutenant, and they're not right there on top of and in charge of everything, right?
Right. You get deputies, sometimes you get a sergeant. We had quite a group of sergeants on our team, mostly because our schedules allowed us to roll to these incidents. So we were available.
I was handling a barricade, and I was a new sergeant. But as you know, I'm not really a shy guy, right? When I'm in charge, and you know, I'm usually pretty reserved. But when I'm in charge, hey, I'm in charge, and I won't say the station and the people, but I was in charge, and commander rolls in, all the people roll in, and the SCB is there, and you know, I felt we could talk this guy out, right? You know, we could get this guy. We just need to wait him out a little bit, right? But SCB is working on the commander, and they're working out their plan. And the commander comes over, talk to me, and she's pushing this plan, right? And I said, "Are you taking over, ma'am?" And she goes, "No, I'm not." I says, "Okay." Just like that. And she, you know, because I said, "Yeah, hey, you know, are you taking over?" You know, and sure enough, 15 minutes later, got the guy to come out, you know. So it's when you are in charge, you got to be in charge, right, John? You can't just let somebody roll over because
no, that's absolutely right.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to. I was an executive, right? That's why they call me the chief. But there's sometimes you get executives who get ahead of themselves because they have the rank and they forget the policy, and not all of them have handled a lot of high risk tactical situations. A lot of them have. There's some guys that have great experience, but not all of them, right? And so you really, when you're in charge, whether you're the lowly sergeant who is the station, you got to be in charge, right, John?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I had one incident just before I made sergeant. I was working the desk at Santa Clarita, and this World War II vet, all his friends had died. He just lost his last friend, and he was drunk, and he fired his gun in the house, and his wife got scared, and SWAT was out there like that. SCB was out there, and I kept talking to the guy, and I was never in the service, but he didn't know that. So I told him, all, you know, I have friends that were Marines, so I knew some of the verbiage, and I kept talking to him. And eventually, after about 3 hours, the SWAT team he fell asleep. Well, he's talking to me, and he fired his gun into the ceiling, and SWAT threw a SWAT rock through his bedroom window, and he didn't wake up. So then they went in and got him out. Oh. But the joke was that I bored him to death and put him to sleep. So and that ended the incident. And Barry Peru, remember Barry tried to hire me then.
Yeah.
But I didn't do it.
Yeah, I don't know whatever happened to Barry. I mean, you know, so Kim, I got to ask this question just to give people scale. So we work for the largest the largest sheriff's department in the country. So it was actually a pretty big. We had a lot of barricades and a lot of activity, right?
We did.
In comparison. So because of that, those deployments, it's my understanding, like with Barry Peru and others, Barry was somebody who was, for the audience, somebody who was in charge of our hostage negotiation teams. I think it was the sergeant, right?
Yeah.
But we become national experts because we do it so often. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is. It's very correct. The training that I went through was actually put on by the FBI, but they brought several of us back as instructors because we do it so often and pretty well.
Yeah, and that's
Absolutely.
if
We
you
got some
think of,
great ones.
if you think about the FBI, I mean, they're not on the spot. So for them to actually do hostage negotiation, they're not, they're going to be there like 8 hours later, right? So it's going to be the
Exactly.
local, right? They're not going to be there on top of it.
Yeah,
And the only time they're going to be probably the hostage negotiator if it's a federal, if it's a federal handle on federal property. It's, because most of the work is done by locals, right?
yes.
Yeah. So, all right. So, one other thing I wanted to ask before we move on, because I didn't realize you were a hostage negotiator, but so now that's going to change my questions a little bit. Can you lie to the guy?
Absolutely.
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 so this whole
But
thing,
you have to be careful how far you go with those lies. But yes,
right?
you
True.
can.
Yeah. So Johnny lying is okay, I guess. All right. Well, John, we know it's not part of your DNA to lie. I shall not tell. I shall always tell the truth, right? You got the little Boy
Yep.
Scout oath going there. Okay, so this movie was released in 1998, and it starred Samuel L. Jackson and Kevin Spacey. And I really want to talk about these guys before we start rolling our scenes. I always liked Samuel L. Jackson. I think he does a great job. He's a great actor. And John, what'd you think of his character in this movie?
Well, frankly, the acting is always good from him, Spacey, even though Spacey's got some other issues. But no, the acting is great. There's a lot of good actors in this, some that we've talked about before in other movies. But it's just the whole premise of the movie was far-fetched. I mean, it was an exciting movie, but that was it. But no, Samuel Jackson, of course, he's loud. He's usually cussing a lot in a lot of his movies, but he's a good actor.
Yeah, he kind of plays the same shtick every time, but that's what they're hiring him for, right? And
Yep.
so what do you think, Kim? Good job by not a hostage negotiator guy, but
No.
fun guy to watch.
But based on the storyline, he was passionate.
Yeah.
About the position he was put in.
Yep.
Yeah, well, but we don't normally have hostage negotiators that are lieutenants. Well, it was the other thing. It's like he's the rock star. Oh, you got another one out, and everybody's at the bar cheering, and I'm thinking, okay, I just, after 20 hours on a hostage negotiation, I'm going home to go to sleep, right?
Yeah.
I ain't going to the bar, right? I mean, when are you going to celebrate? Because they can last pretty long. What's your longest time you were on a hostage negotiation, Kim?
I can tell you my shortest was 7 minutes. I held the record, as far as I know, still do. But the longest, I mean, it was probably 30, 32 hours.
Oh.
And you kind of have to introduce your hostage taker to your partner, because you can only go so long before you're so exhausted you can't listen anymore. You can't.
Right.
You're not doing anybody any good.
So you do trade-offs. So you reintroduce
Not very
a new
often.
guy. Not very often. Yeah, usually, because I imagine they're all settled within 8 to 16 hours, but 32 hours is that's a very long time.
We've had some that, Chris and Pitts. Do you remember that incident with the guy that went in and took everybody hostage?
No, where's that at?
Where was Chris and Pitts?
On
it was in the Valley.
And
Where
Victory.
was it? Okay, yeah. And they called us in, and probably one of the best negotiators I have ever worked with. It was his handle. And I don't remember how many hours he was out there, and ended up having to bring the guy past a window for SCB to do what SCB had to do. He was going to start taking out hostages. It was crazy.
Wow. Well, you want to shout out on the best hostage negotiation you ever knew? Who was that? For the sheriff's department, or?
Yeah, Rudy Cortez.
Rudy
fellow
Cortez.
sergeant.
Okay. All right, Sergeant Rudy Cortez, you just got an attaboy or a gold star from Kim Brink. And, let's roll our first scene. And I just call this one the opening hostage thing. And we get to talk about the tactics in this one because that's what it was like. What? And so here he is. He's, like you said, Kim, he's right at the door. Yeah, I'm like, I don't think I've ever seen this at all where they get this close. And here's the other thing, when I do these movies, I realize Hollywood's got to get the tight shot. So some of this unrealistic stuff, right, John? So having right by the door, talking to the guy.
Yeah, it's all for dramatic effect.
Way more dramatic than Kim on the phone at the command post. Okay, I got to ask this question, Kim, because people are going to say, well, you're on the phone. What if he doesn't have a phone? How do you get a phone introduced into the...
There are times when SEB will figure out how to throw a phone to the person. We have a nifty little robot that they can send out remotely to take a phone. If it's a home that they're in, we start, with intel looking for the home number, anybody in the home that has a cell, and just go from there. Now, if this all works if it's a hostage situation and they're in a building of some kind, but you would be close if you had like somebody that was going to jump from a bridge, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Or in cars now.
In this situation, yeah.
Well, in cars too, right? So now if somebody's barricaded in a car, we call out SWAT and the hostage.
Yes.
I don't think we always did that before, but the criteria has changed, or we've expanded the criteria. Here's the other thing that I noticed about this movie, because it's based in Chicago, right? A lot of high rises. So you know what I mean? So there's going to be a lot more tenement buildings and things like that, and high rises to try and do it in. People don't realize we have high rises in LA, but the density in Los Angeles is a lot less than Chicago. So, that's that would make it a little more challenging doing hostage negotiation from a block away. Communications might be an issue. The vertically they're far away from you. And have you ever had to do a negotiation where somebody's way up at the 20th floor of a hotel or anything like that?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, I just would think that would add a lot of logistical problems in my mind. John, what do you think?
Oh yeah, it could be, especially in Chicago, where some of that cell phone usage would be blocked and break up. And it's more difficult for SWAT to get Chicago SWAT or whatever to get the high point to be able to snipe or whatever they need to do to look at the situation. But in LA, it's a lot different.
Yeah.
But back in the 60s, we didn't have all the high rise. Now we have a lot downtown.
Yeah, and we probably should. Why did we develop SWAT, John? I'll let you do the history on this one, right? I'm sure you can probably guess it out. I guess what it was. So it was the SLA shootout, right?
Yep. SLA, LAPD, and SLA.
So we had this violent shootout. The people who kidnapped Patty Hearst.
Hearst.
And they had this violent shootout, and they were
Symbionese Liberation Army.
That's right. They were armed with a lot of weapons, and that gave birth, of course, to hostage negotiation. Just sending SWAT out to shoot them wasn't. We had to have some way to de-escalate. Right. That's the name. Yep. That's the name of the game. Now we got to de-escalate everything. Which is, Kim, it is crazy. You listen to these leftists talk about, well, they didn't give them a chance to de-escalate. Now it's become the word. Let's just throw that word out there, no matter what happens, to criticize the cops. And and of course,
absolutely,
they have no idea. But negotiation is de-escalation, right? We've been doing this for decades, right?
Yes, and there's plenty of times when the negotiators arrive to whatever the situation may be, that the deputies on scene have already made contact with this person. They have built a rapport with this person, and we just let them handle the business of negotiations. We're there if they have any questions, if they go too far.
Absolutely.
You can't make promises. There's certain things you can and can't do. But I've gone on calls where I haven't had to really do much. The deputies have it handled. They're on top of it.
Yeah, so you're just there for technical support, I guess.
Yes.
So in this scene, Samuel L. Jackson ultimately volunteers to go inside the place. I ever heard of that in modern negotiations? Okay, so let's talk about, how about when you go to these training, have they ever talked about scary scenarios when this was done before? Because I heard a story about a captain who, on the sheriff's department, they called him Backup Bill. And that
he ended up a chief.
Yeah. So is that a true story, John?
Yes, it is. He was a 211 at a liquor store, I believe, down in South Central, and he was in civilian clothes. So when they're backing in, he's taking hostages in. He went in backwards like this, and he ended up inside. What happened after that, I don't know. I remember the whole thing. Yeah, back in Bill Baker.
Was it an exchange for getting hostages out? Is that at least?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I wasn't there. I don't know. But I remember being told about it in the academy.
And of course, it was don't ever do that. Is that what?
Yeah. What are you thinking?
Yeah, and he was he a captain at the time, right? So it wasn't like he was, or maybe a lieutenant or something like that.
It might have been a lieutenant. I don't know. He ended up a chief. He was my captain in West Hollywood for a short time. But yeah, back in Billy Baker.
Yeah, I never had. I always liked working for him. He seemed like a decent guy, but that just seemed like, okay.
It took a lot of balls to do what he did.
Wow.
But it is something that they don't allow today, or they would not allow that, right, Kim?
Correct.
So, I mean, the incident commander would shut him down. You ain't doing that.
Yes.
And the idea was, for him to get this guy in front of a window, right? He was doing in the scene. So we kind of talked about how the hostage, you talked a little bit about the hostage negotiator will work with SWAT to help manipulate the person where they can actually end it, hopefully with the hostages surviving. And let's talk about that briefly, because so overall, do you have like an overarching goal that they'll talk about in negotiator school? What is the goal of the negotiator and a negotiation?
Oh, it's always a peaceful ending where
right.
No one gets hurt. It's not always the case, but that's the ultimate goal.
Right. And you would watch this scene where he's, I think the bad guy does get shot in this scene, but it's so that, hey, thank you for joining us, King's Protocol. So the goal is to get everybody out and get them out safe, right? And that's
correct.
We just need to put that out there for the audience so that everybody knows that's what we're trying to do. And so on this scene, any comments on this scene, Kim? Other than what the hell?
Other than the fact that he is way too close, and now he's gone in, putting him in front of the window. Yeah, we've done that to end the threat. Sometimes that's what it comes to. That part of the movie was believable, but not the way it was handled.
Him being the bait is not believable, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And John, what did you think of the scene? Same kind of comments.
Well, it was good for the movie, but it's not realistic. You go in, he's got a gun to the back of your head. Sorry, but no.
Yeah.
You can play that game all you want on TV because you don't die, but it's TV.
Yeah.
It's not realistic. The problem is you have people that will watch this and think, oh, that cop is great. He's brave. No, they should do that every time in real life. No.
Well, and he's got a shotgun, so it's not like, if I remember correctly, the bad guy's got a shotgun here, so it's not like he ain't gonna miss, right?
No.
So here's the other thing, though. He had a list, Kim. He had a list. So do you gather intel on your bad guy, the guy that's taken the hostage taker, to try and connect with them? Is that accurate with what the list he had?
Absolutely. When it's possible, you talk to family members. You don't ever let them come to the scene, but family members, neighbors, anybody that you can gather in a hurry and get information.
So in this scene, he's talking about the dog. He's trying. So, and you're with this information, are you trying to make that personal connection with him? Because that's what's implied in the movie.
Yes, you do.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, here's the thing. After this scene, we go on to, well, I got my notes here. Never seen a hostage guy go in. Oh, it saved the day again. Here's the whole hero worship thing, did you ever get there where they threw a party for you and you saved the day again, Kim? Because I go,
No.
this is that part's unrealistic where we're going and we're celebrating. Like I said, you're going home because you got, all right, I got to ask this question here so everybody understands. Hostage negotiation. What is the typical hours in which you get a call out? Because I know when I did search and rescue, it was always late on Sunday. So what are the typical hours that you get called out? Is it like noon to 6, or is it like 6 to midnight? What are those? Yeah, is it when you least want it? When are those call out hours that you get?
It's usually when you least want it. Crazy has no schedule, so it seems to be weekends, late night, alcohol involved, those kinds of things.
That was my next question. Alcohol involved. So here you are, day shift, 9 to 5. Okay, we get it over by 5 o'clock. We can all hit the bar and talk about how Samuel L. Jackson is a hero. But in reality, it's 2 a.m. on a Saturday. You got like 4 hours sleep. Now you're up and you're rolling to the call out, right? That's more typical, right?
That's the reality.
And you do maybe 3 or 4 hours negotiated, whether you resolve it or SWAT team resolves it, and then you're going home like 7 in the morning and you're thinking, I need to get a couple hours sleep before, and then maybe you might even have to go back to work on Monday or something like that. You might have to go work that day, right?
Yep.
That's typical.
Yeah, and there were no parties. We had a debrief after the incident, and it was, hey, everybody's going home. Good job. See you guys next time. That was it.
Exactly.
And we didn't need any more than that. We did our jobs, and we were good with that.
That's it. And okay, so we got to do the dirty little how you got. I don't want to say how you. So were you on a flex schedule? So they kind of, or did you get overtime for this?
I got overtime for it.
Okay, because sometimes if you're on call, they put you on a flex schedule, and then
True.
you only get overtime after you hit your first 40, right?
And then sometimes I would be able to adjust my schedule if we, had a very late night, early morning. Then I would adjust my schedule and not take the overtime and just go in at later hours, which I happen to like. This is early for me.
Yeah, she was complaining because 8 o'clock in the morning is early. It is morning coffee, the chief. You're supposed to have your coffee, and then you sit down, and we have a great conversation.
But don't tell me if I'm wrong, but I remember that if you were part of that team, if you're working patrol or wherever you're working, you have carte blanche. As soon as they call, you go, and that watch sergeant's going to have to replace you on his own because you have to go. Period.
Yes, and luckily our team expanded enough that we kind of had a north team, so if something happened up on the north end, they could roll
quicker response.
But up until then, we were going countywide.
Yeah, and that's 4,000 square miles, so you could have a roll that's an hour, right, from your house, or more.
Easily,
or more, right?
Easily.
Okay, so they kind of get in a little bit in the plot here, John. So help me out here. There's he after the scene, I think it was at the bar. His partner hits him up, says, "Hey, I got to talk to you about something."
Right.
And it ends up being about some disability fund, which is kind of unbelievable. I mean, how we do our disability fund, I can't imagine the level of that they could have gotten away with what they got away with without doctors and lawyers involved in the corruption scheme. But that's what this was about. So he tells him, I got something to tell you, and about an informant who's working with IAB, and then later on the partner's killed. But before we get into that scene, but that is basically the plot of the movie. We got this corruption going on, and they're framing Samuel L. Jackson, right?
Right.
Beepers. I saw that and I go, oh my God, the throwback. So when you were on call and when you first started, was it beepers or cell phones?
It was cell phones.
Oh, so you started. Now I did mountain search and rescue. I know Bert followed up and did mountain search and rescue as
Yes.
well, but it was, I don't know, was it still a beeper for him? I carried a beeper in the 80s. I mean, oh no, it was actually the mid 90s to late 90s. I had
Yeah,
a
I had
beeper.
one too.
And you remember that you were cool if you had the beeper, right? You were
Yep.
somebody, right? And so if you had a department beeper, you were, oh man, now, man, everybody's connected now. You can't
Yep.
get away from work, right? But you were somebody if you had that damn beeper. And so it's just amazing how the technology has
Oh yeah.
progressed,
Yeah, when I
right?
saw that beeper, it brought back memories.
Yeah.
So is dope dealers and important people are the ones who had beepers, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go into the murder of the partner. We'll show this, and it's kind of the murder, and I think I have the funeral, so I wanted to talk a little bit about that. And it's clear when you see the murder scene that he knows who killed him, right? You know, the partner recognizes him, and then he's murdered. And we'll show the scene here, but you know, it was yeah, we're cool. The civilian with the beeper. Yeah, that's right. King protocol. Well, at the time in the 80s and 90s, if you had a beeper, you were somebody that was very important, or you were a dope dealer. It was always a tip off device, right? You know. So
Yep.
I mean, I'm dating myself because remember I started working the streets in '83 and joined I'm 85 and joined the street department in '83.
I was
So,
happy when they finally gave me a BlackBerry. I didn't have to use the beeper anymore.
Oh, I remember those.
yeah, then you were really styling, and some, you know, and
Yeah.
what happened to that technology, right? I mean, we gave way to smartphones to crack. I mean, they had cornered the market on government, the crackberry. I mean, the Blackberries,
Yeah.
and of course that was the first inkling that once you get one of these things, you can't put them down, right?
Yeah, and then they
I
went to, remember I think it was a net something. It was where you had a phone, but also if you hit a button, you're a walkie-talkie, and you can
yeah,
talk to your partner, 20
I don't know if
miles
you guys
away.
know Norm Campbell,
Yeah.
NC6K,
Yeah.
NC6K. So we were partners for a while, and he had a ham radio that he carried before, we had handhelds. And so he would, I forget what, auto patch or something. He would tap into the ham thing and you're able to make a phone call. So he would make a phone call to call into a business or something, if it was a 211 alarm or whatever, robbery alarm, whatever, he would handle it right there. And NC6K, that was his call numbers when we were working. I think they changed since then, right? Well,
No,
go ahead, Jim.
I'm in 6 OSS.
Are you really? You're a ham.
I am. And
Oh,
Bert's in
wow.
6 USO.
I had 110 ham operators when I was in charge at Crescenta Valley, and they tried to get me to become a ham, but I was still going to school. And I said, and then when I finished, I said, I just finished my degree. I don't want to go to another class. So I never did it, but I'll tell you, I had to run drills with those guys. And what I did is because you had to do packet drills,
Yeah.
packet.
Yep.
So you're sent, instead of voice, you're sending data, right? And so I told them, okay, well, we're going to have a trivia contest. I'll come up with the questions and we'll throw the question out and they have to respond with the right answer. And whoever gets the most right, then they win. I forget what it was. And we did. It was actually pretty well received. You guys are, I'm a history buff, so I had all these great history questions. And so it was kind of fun. I enjoyed doing that. But in the scene that we see here, one of the reasons why I want to do this is the funeral scene. And I did talk about this in the show I did, the one with Ian Campbell and Hedinger, the Onion Field.
Oh, yeah.
Now in Chicago, and I grew up in Detroit. Hey, how you doing, Secret Circus podcast? Good afternoon. In Chicago, they had a lot more bagpipers. So if you had a funeral in Detroit or Chicago, you always had a line of bagpipers. It was huge because for us in Detroit, you would get the bagpipers from Windsor PD coming over as well, from Canada. And so when I was listening to the funeral scene, I heard all the bagpipes. It just reminded me of all the memorial services and the funerals I used to go to as a kid because my dad was a cop. And it was more my experience back there, although we had bagpipers out here. It always reminded me of funerals, the bagpipers. I don't know what you think about bagpipes, Kim. If you went in the line of duty, would you want bagpipers?
Absolutely. It's always emotional.
Yep.
But heck
It's
yeah.
a big thing back east in New York.
Yeah.
You know, the history of the cops back in New York is Irish and Italians. And the Irish had that back. They have a big corps back there.
Yeah.
All those guys do is practice that stuff. I'd love to have that.
Well, if you've ever been to Police Week in DC, Pat, I think you've both been there. They actually have their drum and corps competition. And I'll tell you, the Massachusetts drum and pipes, they're pretty darn good.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The only time I really see them out here where they were really strong. Now you would have a funeral. Yeah, that's right, Kingsport, Boston. We'd have a funeral, and you might have one or two bagpipers there. But when they had the Emerald Society would show up at like a St. Patrick's Day festival or some kind of a special event where you might have maybe 6 to 10 at the most here in LA. But back east, you might have, I don't know, 20, 30 bagpipers, and then you have the drum corps behind them going, and you might have 50 guys. And for me, it just reminds me of that growing up back east and police funerals back east. Let's see, my last 5 months at Bragg, they had me on the funeral detail. It didn't settle with me, but okay, thank you. I don't know if you,
Army.
Yeah, I don't know if you enjoyed doing that. I mean, if somebody dies in the line of duty, as far as I'm concerned, we give them everything we can, right? We honor them, because as a family, sometimes we're the only ones that are going to honor them, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So anyways, in this scene, go ahead.
You know what I didn't like in the funeral is, and maybe that's how they do it there, but I don't think so, is they covered the casket and folded up the Chicago PD's flag or some shit.
Oh, yeah.
We had to look that up.
The American flag. I've never seen that.
Apparently that flag, we looked it up because we thought the same thing. And each star stands for something significant that happened in Chicago, like the Chicago fire. And I can't remember what the other three were. But that's
probably World's Fair, maybe, or
but that flag does exist. But we had to look it up too because we thought the same thing.
Yeah, I immediately think, especially when you fold it and you give them in the triangle, you give it to the.
It's always the American
family.
flag.
It's the American flag, but
yeah,
that's why I was like,
Yeah, I didn't even think of that, John, but you're right. Normally it's American flag, and I do remember one movie we did. The Departed, where there was a lot of bagpiping in there. Remember?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you did that movie with me, John, but yeah, there's a lot of.
Yes, I did.
And that would have been Boston and Massachusetts, where that was going on.
Yep.
So in this case, the partner's killed, and they find out that a gun that was used in the murder was somehow linked to Samuel L. Jackson's character. And Samuel L. Jackson has some kind of oversight or some kind of responsibility for the disability fund. And so he is their suspect, and he's relieved of duty by the department. And I don't know, I was on our union here. This is the part that's unbelievable. They're not going to just you're not just going to have the authority to vote up and down. I mean, I know we have. If you get a disability and you end up to the pension board and they make decisions on your disability, right, for your disability pension, but they don't make decisions on your workman's comp, right, which is a different thing, right? So there is some connection where people who are voted on by the employees can make some decision on your retirement a retirement disability pension, but not workman's comp. That's all done through lawyers and doctors, and it's fought out, and I think it's fought out even harder now. I think the board of
Oh, big time.
supervisors
Yeah.
is
County fights everything.
well, you know what? I talked to some friends who retired recently, and I get the sense that they're fighting everything with the sheriff's department even harder. And
Right.
I'm so suspicious because I want to go and see if they're fighting the fire guys just as hard, and I suspect not.
No, they are. We have things that are presumptive, heart and
Yeah.
hearing. Presumptive. Shouldn't be any question about it.
Yeah,
They're
I got
fighting
both.
them all.
I got both.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't have the heart, but I have the hearing. And I didn't apply till much later. And they fought it, but I won. But the bottom line is they're fighting stuff. Some of these guys you see on Facebook, and they're talking about their back injuries and stuff that they've had full medical on, 100% or 50%, whatever. And they're fighting the doctor bills. They're fighting everything. And we're paying, the county's paying millions to fight when they'd be less if they just pay like they're supposed to be paying.
I really believe that's part of their liberal makeup on the board. That's my perception. And I mean, I still have one case lingering, but the injuries are so evident, and I'm finally feeling better now with the issues that I have.
Right.
But it's still kind of open, and I just feel like that's what's going on. They're fighting tooth and nail just because we're
Right.
cops.
But yeah, you don't relieve people of duty though, just on bullshit questions, and all of a sudden he's under investigation. It's just a little. Well, but they got to stick it all in an hour and a half, 2 hours. So that's how.
Well, IAB tries to negotiate with him or get him to cut a deal because they got him. Somebody's got him framed up here. They trying to get him cut a deal, and they're on the 20th floor in a federal building. Now, this was part that was, I can understand maybe sheriff or LAPD, IAB co-locating with the feds on a, maybe a project or an event kind of thing.
On
like
a task force.
On a task force like Arco Narco.
Yeah.
But that would be temporary. But they're on the and here's the other thing you have to understand about high rises. Kim, you are muted. Just want to let you know. High rises is they ain't going to put the local cops on the 20th floor. You're going to be down in the basement. So, right?
At least in LA, you would be.
You'd be down in the basement. You're going to be on the 20th floor.
Arco Narco had were pretty high, but yeah, it's right. And that's another thing. On that federal building, they had the Chicago flag also, which the cop flag, the two didn't mix well with me.
Right. Well, obviously that's the person with the set director, the set designer guy that's getting that stuff wrong. But so he gets up there and he ends up taking a bunch of people hostage, which was surprising to me. And I don't know what's going on with Chicago's internal affair, but they all gave up their guns pretty darn quick too. That was what I noticed in the scene. So let's roll the scene. 20th floor internal affairs. I think I got it as "This Is My Life" is the scene, and he takes hostages, which I thought this was pretty unrealistic.
Very.
And he's got them. I mean, there must have been 15 guys in that office, and they all just kind of put their guns down. I'm like, I don't know. It doesn't work for me. And here's this great character actor. I forget his name.
J.T. Walsh.
J.T. Walsh. And now he was in. What was he in? He was in Good Morning Vietnam. He played the kind of the sergeant who was mad at the broadcast of the DJ Robin. God, I'm forgetting his name now. The great comedic actor. And then he was in Robin Williams, and he was in A Few Good Men, and he was in Hoffa as well. So he's had a lot of really good and I looked him up. He actually died pretty young. He
died right after filming this movie, Negotiator. And at the end of the movie, they give him a
That's right.
The movie to him. After he filmed, he and his family went to the Caribbean on vacation. He died the next day, massive coronary.
I always, so, okay, if you're listening to me here, do me a favor. If you haven't had a checkup, go get a checkup. Go get your heart checked out. I always wonder, these guys that, did they go to the doctor and get these preventative stuff, because it's like, how does that sneak up on you? right nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Kim, are you all over Bert to go get checked out?
Always.
Always, right?
He does pretty good. We both do.
You're checking on each other, pushing each other. So, push your spouse to go. We let ladies push your spouse to go. I mean, it's always the ladies, because guys think, oh, I don't need to go. I'm feeling fine, right? And you got to push them to go, right? And guys, if you're listening, just go to the doctor, get a checkup. I mean, I think I was 49, and I get a call from my doctor after some tests. He goes, you need to go right to the cardiologist. I swear to God, this is what he said to me. You could die at your desk. What?
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That'd make me die right there.
Yeah.
And I mean, the week before, I had run a half marathon in about an hour and 50 minutes, and I'm going, no way. He goes, no, you could, and fortunately, the cardiologist said, well, you got issues. It's not that serious. It is serious, just not that serious. You're not going to die at your desk. But yeah, that was go to your doctors, right? So here he is. He takes everybody hostage. Now, here's a couple things here. They all gave up their guns. I ain't giving up my gun.
That doesn't happen.
Nope.
Right?
It's just TV. It's the movies.
I might back out with my gun, but I ain't giving it up, right?
Yeah, the head of the IAB, J.T. Walsh, tells them to put them down. Remember the onion field?
Yeah.
That's when it started. And that's when, since then, it's written in the law at LAPD, you do not give up your gun, period.
Yeah.
Oh, that's our
policy. We follow the same venue. We don't do it either. No real police officer does. That's all TV.
Nope.
Yeah, we were all discouraged from doing that kind of stuff. Okay, so his buddy comes in too. Now here's his buddy right here, Frosty, right? Is that
yep?
That's Frost.
Frosty.
Yeah, he plays Grant Frost.
And I thought he was an executive. I don't think he is. He's just a part of the team there. But he's got the ankle holster.
Yeah, he's an assistant chief or chief.
Oh, he's an assistant. Yeah. Oh, and so now he's an executive with an ankle holster. That's my first. Okay. All right. I never wore an ankle holster because you know what? You couldn't chase anybody. You're afraid of losing your gun.
And you can't even get to it.
No.
Yeah. If you're going to carry a backup, what do you carry? A pocket holster, right? You don't carry an ankle holster. So I was thinking, who the heck were these tactical? And why is an executive carrying an ankle holster? I mean, what's it? In case somebody doesn't get the report in on time. I don't.
That executive is played by Ron Rifkin. You remember him? He was the corrupt DA in City Confidential when we did that movie.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
He was the one that clipping his nose hairs, and he tells what's his name? You want to play good cop, bad cop? I invented that shit. And then he grabs him and hangs him out the window.
Yeah. Yep. Hey, so how was that? Was that a good cop, bad cop?
Yeah, damn right.
All right. So ankle holsters, Kim. Ever carry an ankle holster?
Never.
Always pocket?
Never. Always. It was more. It would have been more dangerous for me. Again, if you're in a foot pursuit, you have to go over a fence. Now you're worried about losing it. And then what if you're in a ground fight and you have to get to it? It was always, because I'm right-handed, so my backup was always front left pocket.
Front left. I kept mine weak hand right front pocket. That's what I always kept. The back pocket, I didn't like sitting on it. So front pocket, for our audience here, a pocket holster, a pocket, you carry a very slim pocket holster. Normally did you have a bobbed hammer, hammer or
yes.
Mine was a shroud.
You have to. You can't get.
I had
you
a
don't
shroud.
Want to snag on anything.
I had a shroud, so it would cover. The shroud would cover the hammer so that it wouldn't snag on the holster or when it comes out of your pocket. When the hammer is bobbed, they take the rough part off. So the part that you would use to pull it back if it's double action, that gets bobbed off. Or just sheared off, and so that it can slip out of your pocket easily if you have to use it, right? And I can't remember ever having to do that, but I do. We had this famous situation involving, I think it was the Fruit of Islam, right? It was remember that Lennox caper where they attacked the deputies to try and relieve them of their gun, the Nation of Islam.
Yep.
And I think one of them lost her gun, or maybe two of them, and
I know her very well. and
You
she
want to
didn't
talk a
quite
little bit
use her
about it?
gun.
You don't have to say the names, but
What I do know about it, because I wasn't there, so I can only give you the details I know. She and her partner went in. I believe it was an apartment that they went into. Fight was on immediately. She carried her backup in her back pocket, and she was face down in the fight, so she couldn't get to her back pocket. That's why I was taught at the same station at Lennox, we can front pocket, never your back pocket. So lesson learned. And and I can't, like I said, I wasn't there, and from what I heard, she didn't really do anything wrong. It was just the way the incident unfolded.
Yep.
well, there was another one where they training officer that got the guns, and then the trainee managed to get his backup out and shoot and kill
I
one
know
of them.
them too.
You know them too. That's the one I was thinking of, and it was with his
Yeah.
backup. And they used to play this game where they would try to disarm the police, and deputies.
And
Very dangerous game to play. Very dangerous
that one
game to play.
it was a Muslim group that was in
Yeah.
the area at that time, and they were able to get, and it was a training officer trainee, into an alley. Training officer is one of the biggest guys you'd ever seen. Former boxer for our station, and he and his trainee go down this alley. They get jumped. The training officer gets overtaken, and his trainee was able to get to his backup, came over top of his training officer, and shot the suspect that was attacking his partner. Saved his life.
Yep.
Very well done.
Yeah, the
Yep.
TO is really a tall guy, and I can't remember his name though.
Bill
They were both
Tackleberry.
Yeah.
they were both fighting over the control of their primary weapons, right? I think that's what
Correct.
was going on. And
Yeah.
and the trainee managed to get to his backup and
Yeah.
ended
He
that
did an
argument.
amazing job.
Yeah, ended that argument. So those things happen. So a backup gun is here. We went off on this whole backup thing, but I think we have time for one more scene before we do our break. So or at least we need to discuss this scene. So he's taken over, and this is the exciting part. You see the SWAT guys come all in line. You see the bomb squad coming, and they're all talking about Samuel L. Jackson he's an expert in bombs. He's an expert in tactics. He's an expert marksman. He's an expert in everything in this show.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and he immediately begins to frame the space to benefit himself. He prevents the ability to get a camera in. So let's talk a little bit about cameras. So do you use cameras to see what's going on if you have the chance, Kim?
That's technology that it's difficult. We do have that ability, but that's done through SEB, not from the negotiators.
But it isn't always 100%, right? Sometimes the space just doesn't allow it. Sometimes it does. I mean, this whole thing where they're crawling in heating vents and putting in there. I mean, that's pretty exciting. But I don't, I just don't remember that kind of stuff
No.
happening. And so, and of course, you have 10 cars in line. The SCB guys, unless they're all training together, they don't really just roll together. They come from different areas, gather up, and so they did a lot of things to make it exciting, right? And then guys hanging off helicopters with guns, and I mean, that does happen, but not like this. People are they're gonna talk about it for a couple hours before they do something like that, right? They're not gonna just roll in there. Oh my God, the hostage negotiator's gone crazy. He's taken. I don't know, man. Maybe wouldn't have a big response to IAB getting taken over, but I would think so. A lot of good guys in IAB, but so a lot of dramatization, John. That's kind of unrealistic.
Yep.
After he takes these guys, right? And of course, he just wants one thing. When they ask him, "What do you want?" he says he wants the next big actor in this movie, Kevin Spacey, Chris Sabian, to roll. And he's realizing the plot of the movie is somebody set him up. He doesn't know who it is, but it's probably somebody close to him, right? That's what he recognizes. So he doesn't want anybody that he doesn't know or that he knows that is part of his team to be part of this. And for me, this was a little unrealistic. Oh, he works on the West Side. I've only seen him once. Hostage negotiators are a clannish, cliquish group that train together and know each other, right, Kim?
Correct.
So that, you know, so we're the largest sheriff's department with, I think we did the policing for about 3.5 million people. And then we provided support for contracts or for other cities that had their own police departments. So that's up to 6 million people. And so we would have been just as active, if not more active, than Chicago PD. It was, you know, so unrealistic that he doesn't really know Chris Sabian from the collection of negotiators in the city. Because what, maybe 20 negotiators tops?
Gosh, when I retired, probably 30.
30? Yeah.
30-ish.
Small group, and
not a huge group for as often as they get called out.
Right, exactly. And so another kind of unrealistic thing that they got going on. But before we roll the Chris Sabian scene, let's go ahead, Martine. Are we ready for our break? Mr. Martine, here we go. We ready for our break?
Yes, we are.
All right.
And
John didn't put you to sleep.
No, I just couldn't find the unmute button on time. Okay, and here we go.
Time for potty break.
Meet the Seattle Vigilante. Like so many comic heroes, this warrior hides his identity. But his identity isn't the only secret he has to keep. After grievous wounds received during combat, Tier 1 operator John Russell begins to recover and comes to terms with his new reality of being an amputee. And as he learns how to use his new prosthetic limb, he finds himself caught up in the bureaucratic red tape that too many wounded veterans experience, the exhausting medboard process. Out of sheer frustration, John takes it out on the criminal scum of the city. But when reality kicks in, John realizes he started something that's having an impact on the greater world around him, and thus has to reevaluate his motives. And moreover, just how far is John willing to go to finish this war he's declared against the criminals in Seattle? And will he even survive? From the creator of IDW's award-winning graphic novel Code Word Geronimo comes a new story about a different kind of warrior, Vindicated Inc., the first of its kind disabled veteran action hero comic. The Vindicated Inc. graphic novel crowdfunding campaign on fundmycomic.com is provided in the description of this video. We hope you become a contributor. Please share this link. Thank you.
There's only one location on the internet where you can get it all. Movie, TV, and comic industry. News and rumor analysis. Official scoops from Geekosity magazine. Reviews and interviews. So, when you need it to be Sunday, there's only one place to go, mate. Pop Culture Minefield. Well, they're always talking nerdy nerd stuff. Right, jog on then.
Dangerous nerd.
See.
There you go. That's bad.
Welcome back to Morning Coffee with the Chief. Johnny Baylis, we are missing you, so you're going to have to link back in. Now, you guys can watch the show every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on YouTube's Pop Culture Minefield or Rumble's Pop Culture Minefield. And you can watch all the other shows on Pop Culture Minefield, Military Monday, and there we go. There's John is back. So, hey, on this, you know, when I was doing some research on this movie, one of the things that the critics said, of course, they noticed how the plot was kind of unrealistic. and Samuel L. Jackson was Samuel L. Jackson. But they called out Kevin Spacey as being pretty good in the movie, and he was one of the guys to watch, and they enjoyed his performance. And he said it was kind of actually a lot like his role in L.A. Confidential. So
Thank you.
a nice sweater. Yeah, you saw the comment. Okay, all right, thank you, King. I think he's flirting with you. Anyway, so Kim Spade, he's a pretty good actor. He's got some baggage, but I one of the movies that I really liked him was Unusual Suspect. Remember that movie?
Oh yeah.
I thought he
Usual
was.
Suspects.
Yeah, he was really good in that movie, and
he's a hell of an actor.
He's got some.
Yeah, and he's still in try. Nobody's hiring him to make movies anymore.
Yeah.
Did you ever see the one where he did Bobby Darin?
I
did not see that.
Oh yeah, Beyond the Sea.
It was He was playing Bobby Darin, and when he was married and not married to with Sandra Dee, and great acting. He came up. First thing he ever did was The Wise Guy, where he played. There was Ken Olin, I think. I can't remember. Ken something or other was the cop that went undercover, and he was one of the bad guys during it. But Spacey's a hell of an actor, but I won't watch anything he's in anymore.
I wouldn't say I necessarily liked American Rose. I think he got an Academy Award for that.
That was a strange movie.
That wouldn't say that was my favorite, but as they said, one of our viewers said, L.A. Confidential is a great film. Yeah, absolutely, and I thought that was a fantastic film. I think I did that one with you, John, and Buzz. Yeah, so good movie. But let's roll the scene, Chris Sabian, and while we're rolling that scene, one of the things that Samuel L. Jackson does is he's kind of torturing the new guy who's a hostage negotiator, clicking off all the things. Yeah, all the things he can't do and catching him in things that he can't do. I imagine if this was true, that Samuel Jackson is probably the guy teaching the classes to all of these guys, right? He's large and in charge. He's their Barry Peru, but Barry was nothing like that guy, right? So for the audience, Barry Peru was, he was a sergeant on the sheriff's department, but he was a nationally recognized hostage negotiator. Is that correct, Kim?
Yes.
Yep. So he was the guy that was teaching the classes, and he says something here as he's catching Farley or whatever the guy's name is. Don't lie to me. So you can't lie. You don't want to get caught in a lie with your hostage taker, right, Kim?
Correct.
So you can't go too far. You have to.
Like I said before, you can lie, but you got to be careful. If it's something you're going to get caught in, don't do it.
Right. Because then you break that trust, right? Are you lying to me now? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like divorce. Once they lie to you and you divorce them, right? I can't trust her anymore because they lied to me, right? They cheated on me. They did whatever.
Well, and you're talking to somebody who's having the worst day of their lives. So if you can build some kind of rapport, you want to keep that.
Well, I guess I should ask that question. How many, they're all criminals once they take people hostage, but is there a percentage in your mind of how many were, I don't want to say normal people having a bad day, but generally not people in the criminal life having a bad day versus those are criminals who take hostages because that's the course. Were most of them people just having a bad day, Kim? Or
Yeah, just something happened, their wife left them, and it's normally men that are the suspects in this. Their wife has left them or threatened to take the kids away, and they think that's their way out. Again, let's go back to Chris and Pitts. That's what happened at that restaurant. Was the suspect, his wife left him and was threatening. He just wanted to see his kids. Right. That's what he wanted. But he had hostages, and it did not end well for him. But not everybody gets to go home in those situations.
Yeah. So when we are talking, in this case, it's I guess Samuel L. Jackson's fitting that profile. He isn't normally a criminal. He's having a really bad day because he's getting framed for a crime. and he decides to take hostages. Now he has a plan. He's going to force them to investigate. All right, you're going to promise me things and you're going to give me things, but you're going to give me is investigating the case the way I want it to investigate. That's essentially what Samuel L. Jackson is trying to do, right, John?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and during the point in this scene, they do get a chance that, they're trying to take over. Some guys come in and shoot and try and take over some of that. Because I guess here's the part that was unbelievable to me, Kim, is all of these SWAT guys are somehow involved in this conspiracy to rip off the disability fund.
Yeah.
That just didn't roll for me. I mean, I know our SWAT guys. I mean, yeah, they live and die for their job. They love their job. That is the predominant thing in their life. They make such a huge commitment. And the other thing about, just for our audience, when you get a disability claim, that usually means you can't do the job, right? Many times you're sidelined and you put on a desk. There's so many things. So making these claims and getting big money somehow out of the pension fund the disability fund means you're sidelined. You're not doing the job. You wouldn't be there in this scene if you had a significant injury with the disability rating, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So that part was a little bit unbelievable, but we can roll right into I can't take the shot right after this scene, Martine. And one of the things Samuel L. Jackson does in this thing, he tries to personalize his relationship with everybody that's on this team, right? So, Kim, when you are negotiating with folks, once you get an idea of who the hostage taker is and who all the hostages are and what the issues are, do you try to personalize it for that person to characterize what you're going to lose in this situation? Because that's essentially what he's doing.
Yes,
here.
absolutely.
And how
it's mostly listening. You start out, you introduce yourself. We normally don't go by rank. It's just, hey, how you do? My name's Kim. I'm going to be talking to you today. So it kind of takes them away. They don't know if we're law enforcement or not, they're talking to. And you try to personalize it with them, and then you just let them do a lot of talking and hope they get it out of their system in the early portion of the conversation. And then, how are we going to resolve this today? Because, we want you to go home, and however it goes from there. But yeah, you do want to have a rapport with your suspect.
Yeah, and so Samuel L. Jackson is trying. It's a little flipped. So he is appealing to the people who might be shooting him,
right?
That, hey, remember who I am. Remember, we have a personal connection, right? So he's using those same strategies, but he's using it on, hopefully, mom will take him down.
That actually has been said. It's like, we need mom on the phone.
Mom, okay, mom will take him down. Yeah, it's
whatever works. It never hurt my feelings.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Oh, and did you say, oh, I'm a mom? This is, did you relate some of your own personal stuff?
Sometimes, yeah. It just, again, it depends.
Yeah. So, but in this scene, he does manage to get a connection with some of these guys. After some of these guys do break in and try and end the scenario, contrary to what Kevin Spacey wants or Chris Sabian wants. And they have an opportunity to shoot, right? The sniper has an opportunity to take him out, and because of this connection, John, right? He can't do it.
I think the writer was banking on that for this movie to show the humanity, because supposedly they were very close. All the SWAT team and the negotiator, all friends.
Yeah.
They knew what kind of man he was. Do they believe he's a criminal? Do they not? And the one who has the shot, Michael Cudlitz, is the actor. Phenomenal actor. He played the lead cop in Southland, that TV show.
Mm-hmm.
Great show. And he also played a real life character in Band of Brothers. And he also died in Walking Dead. but great actor. And so when he has the shot, and then he personalizes and says, "Hey, take that toothpick out of your mouth." It kind of wakes him up, and he walks away. And
Yeah, you
even
can't do
his
it.
spotter is like, "Wow, shit, okay." They both agree because they're both friends, and they don't believe that he's done what he's doing. But in reality, that would never have happened.
No.
You have to understand, even though we have crisis negotiators, if you have the shot and you can end this thing without anybody getting hurt, you take the shot. It happens again later on when he blows out the window, when they blow out the window, and Samuel Jackson is standing there. Yeah, he's got a vest on, but the helicopter's got 5 high-powered rifles on him. They all would have made mess of that, gone right through them. And they have a shot. And in our department, you don't need me to call you, go. No. You have the shot, you take it, period.
Yeah, they need somebody to listen to them. Yeah, it's I remember that when they had all the red dots on them and they didn't take the shot. That was unrealistic. But it doesn't always work out. There was a hostage situation. It was in Beverly Hills. Remember that one, where the SWAT guy took the shot? And I mean, this hostage taker was very creative, threw a blanket over everybody. And
oh yeah,
remember that one? It was Van Cleef, something Van Cleef. It was a jewelry store, a high-end jewelry store.
Mm-hmm.
And he made one of the hostages look like he was the hostage taker and blew a blanket over him. And they ended up shooting who they thought was the shooter, and it took out one of the hostages. So, tragic
in that
situation.
case, they couldn't see with the blanket over their heads.
They couldn't see.
That's not a go.
That's not a clean shot.
That's not a clean shot. Yeah, I don't know whatever happened to that one, but well, obviously we paid out, but we were supporting Beverly Hills in that one. But here's the other thing about that scene, though. Sabian thought he was in charge. Somebody gave the order to go, and this is where we had the argument between the chief and the SWAT lieutenant, or whatever, the tactical team lieutenant, and Sabian. Who's in charge, right? And you guys are, when a negotiator's working, you're working as kind of a unified command, a team, right? It's a discussion. Okay, I think I'm losing this guy. What's our next plan, right, Kim? It isn't this, I'm not going to talk to the negotiator. I'm just going to charge ahead. It's a team discussion, right?
And we have, it's a team of negotiators as well. You'll have one person talking, but you might have at least 2 other negotiators there with you. And they're writing you notes and saying, hey, ask this or say that, because, you're in the moment and it's something you hadn't thought of yet. So your team is there for that support. And then you have SEB on the other side at the scene, in contact with us. And yeah, if it sounds like we're losing them, or if it comes to that point where this guy's going to be taken out, then you stay on the phone until they have the shot.
Was that a growth in tactics, Kim, where maybe it was you had one negotiator and eventually you began to develop a team of negotiators? That's something that came over time? Because I only remember really one negotiator. And you're right. As time went on, you would see more negotiators roll. So was that a maturing of that program?
I believe so. When I went on the team, it was 2015, I believe. So we had already grown quite a bit. And so it was, hey, we get the call out and, okay, you go get the truck and we'll meet everybody else at wherever the command post was set up. And we would just, start from there. The hardest part was getting our truck set up with all of our equipment, because it was pretty antiquated at the time.
Yeah, really need you, but you're low priority when it comes to budget, right? That's
true.
I was, because you guys, a lot of your guys, in addition to hostage negotiations, they were MET guys, right? Mental evaluation teams. And
yes.
So, and they kind of managed the whole program. And let's just say, in my opinion, I always felt we should have been funding MET a lot more, which seems to be the flavor of the day now. But unfortunately, people in charge didn't always see them as being the biggest priority, which I always thought was a mistake.
I don't remember a lot of Met guys being involved when I was there. It was
That might have
just
been when it first started out. That's what it was. But I think you're right. I think they kind of broke off a little bit.
yeah. It seemed like it was crisis negotiators and SEB, and we matured quite a bit. It used to, one person would have to run out from the trailer to go tell the SEB lieutenant what was going on and how things were going. And then we got this amazing system that we could actually get SEB patched in to where they could hear in real time what was going on and what was being said.
So when did you join the Negotiators, Kim?
2015, I believe.
Yeah, see,
or 16.
I was doing my stuff in the 90s, and they were like two distinct, and there was a little bit more of a competition, right?
Yeah.
And so somewhere somebody got the brilliant idea, why don't we all get along? Why don't we work together, right? So I see those things. These are maturing process. I managed somebody went to some training somewhere and said, boom, I could have had a V8. Why aren't we doing it this way, right?
Well,
kind of thing.
And I think a lot of it too was public scrutiny.
Yeah.
Why couldn't you talk the guy down? Why couldn't you throw your baton and knock the gun out of his hand? Why, silly things like that. But talking him down, not always a silly solution. Most of the time it worked.
Right. And I imagine if there was, you wanted everybody on the same page, because criticism is going to come if you have to, unfortunately, use deadly force and something where somebody's going to get hurt, right? And so you have to, you want everybody on the department on the same page, right? So we're talking, we're conferring. Negotiator said, okay, I think we're at the end here. He's whatever it is that you feel about the situation. Now you're talking about what are our other options, right? Versus in this movie, it implies that the tactical guy is overriding over the negotiator, and that's no bueno. You want everybody working together on the same page, and it's a collaborative, unified command kind of situation almost, if you think about it.
Well, and then you had FBI that showed up, and oh my gosh, how many cars did they come in? And they were going to take over. That doesn't happen.
No, I mean, it was in a federal building too, and to have an FBI response team that quick, they probably would have one in Chicago. But once Chicago PD is there, I mean, because we have this argument, it happens all the time. You get a hostage negotiation team, and you got your line guys on primary perimeter, and then you got an arrest team, and you got an entry team. You got all these people set up, and it takes coordination to relieve that inner perimeter. And lots of times the SWAT guys say, just leave it in. You guys got it good. We will take over for the entry or arrest stuff, right? There's a negotiation how that's going to happen, and everybody ends up on the same page, right? So that's where I had a problem with their team. They weren't on the same page. Didn't seem like they were ever on the same page until Sabian called out the chief, who's in charge, me or you, which sometimes you actually have to do that because you get strong personalities, right? That happens. Right, John? Got to say, hey, are you in charge? You're taking over? And when you say that, what does that mean, Kim? Are you taking on the liability?
Exactly. Because I'm happy to hand it to you.
Hey, it's all yours. I'll follow your orders, whatever you want to do. Ooh, wait a minute. That means I'm number one on the list of lawsuits.
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm not just John Doe. I'm right there. My name is named because I'm in charge, and that's what happens. And so, and sometimes you have to push back on those guys, and Sabian did that in this scene. Who is the chain of command? And that is generally very clearly outlined in hostage situations. And I think in this day and age, as we talked about, a maturing of how we handle hostage situation, it's pretty set on most major urban departments, right, John?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so they have an interesting character here, and I like the character he played. What was that movie? The wine movie.
Sideways.
Sideways. Yeah, I forget the name of the character actor.
Paul Giamatti.
Paul Giamatti.
Oh
Now,
yeah,
he was
Rudy.
just in
Hell of
the Billions too. Have you watched
Billions,
the
the new one. He's
Oh,
the
yeah.
DOJ investigator.
Yeah, he's great
Wow.
in that movie, and I think I actually saw him play in a period piece. I think he played Richard III in a period piece once, and I like him. He's a good actor, and
He was really young on this too.
Yeah.
yes, and but he's kind of the fraudster who happens to be an IAB, probably an informant for our
Yep,
our,
he's
our
an
main
informant.
guy, and he's got the computer skills to help do the investigation, and he's the one who, hey, this is an insurance fraud, right? He's the one that calls him out because Samuel Jackson says, why is this happening? It's insurance fraud, right? You know, they're
Yep.
making claims, and and they got you pegged as the guy making the decisions, and then everybody gets kickbacks. He's the one who basically pulls it together for Samuel L. Jackson. But let's roll the scene. Personnel files, and so he's looking on the computer. He's figuring it out for Samuel L. Jackson, and Samuel L. Jackson. He says in the scene, "They want me dead." He now understands. It's his guys. They are able to see some of the names, and the part that was they have little snippets of wires. Why would you just have this little snippet of wire? You know that would. Anyways, it's the movies, right? I get it. It's the movies, but they have little snippets of what is said on these wiretaps that they have in IAB, and they figure out that it's the head IAB guy is getting he figured out, and he's now getting a kickback from the people who run in the scam. And there's our one of our bad guys, and so anyway, so he's doing all this, and I just thought the way they set this up, where there's got to be this criminal who happens to be in the IAB's office, who actually figures it out for Samuel Jackson. That's what's going on, John, right? I mean, and he's a con man, so he's pulled this scam himself. And I think the easiest way to think of it is there. Remember when in LA we had this crew of fraudsters, and what they were doing is they would slam on their brakes in front of semis. Remember that one?
Oh yeah.
And they would put in their back seat, they would put like tires or something to cushion the blow, and then the semi would hit them. And most of them were illegals, right? They're across the border, and they would do this, and then they would file a lawsuit against the trucking company.
Yep.
So
Gypsies did that a lot too.
Yeah.
Who did that? Gypsies?
Gypsies.
Yeah, and so then they had this is where I was talking about, where they had doctors and lawyers. So the lawyers would obviously, they were working for a lawyer. Lawyer would send them to certain doctors. Doctors would find all these injuries, and then they would sue the trucking company. And the first few times you get away with that, that's one thing. But obviously, you get greedy over time. They just kept doing that. And I want to say this was about 15 years ago they were pulling this scam. And I thought, how the hell do you get two guys to agree to slam on the brakes in front of a semi on the, I'm like, okay, that's a tough way to make some money. Right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
But it was big payouts.
And it's easy money.
And they probably got their payout and just went back to Mexico, built their house, and they were okay. But that's kind of what this character actor is talking about. That's the insurance scam that they're talking about. Right?
Yep.
You fake the injury, you get the doctor to say, oh yeah, it's there. You get the lawyer to find the case. And they're saying that Samuel Jackson's in the place to make the decision on the disability. That's the scam. And this scam does exist, right, Kim? It does happen. Different venues, different cases, but it does happen.
Yes.
Now, we also, I guess we have to, there are guys who cheat on disability pensions and workman's comp, right? And we have units that investigate those
Well,
things.
we used to. I don't know if we still do. Back in the day, there was a female CHP officer that couldn't walk, couldn't do this, couldn't do that. And they followed her around, and she was riding Broncos.
That's why our rate is so high. That's what Johnson. Yeah.
The San Dimas rodeo, when they have doing the stand, and she was there, and sure enough, she was out there bucking broncs.
Well, I got one better. Somebody got a disability pension, a deputy sheriff, I believe, and he was dancing as a Chippendale dancer. That's what they
Oh
called him.
yeah,
You remember that one?
yeah. I worked with him
Unbelievable.
at CJ when I first came on. He ended up being he played on that TV show American Gladiator.
Oh, he did.
Oh,
Yeah, he
good
played one of the
grief.
guys that was all buffed, and you had to go through them on certain types of events to go on and win the money. And he kept getting injured on that show too. But yeah, he was a big racquetball player in the police Olympics. His name escapes me right now.
But they caught him though. They caught him.
Oh
I
yeah,
think they
they caught
prosecuted
him
him. I don't know.
dancing at Chippendales, and they flashed the badge and says, "Hey, you be in the office because you're going to jail." And he came in, and I don't know whatever happened. I know he had to pay money back. And
Yeah, Bert remembers that guy.
Gladiator.
I don't.
Well, he would probably have been okay, but he went out with a back injury, so he couldn't really gyrate those hips like he said he
Exactly.
was actually doing, right? So
hell, in American Gladiator, he had to tackle people like in football.
Oh, did he really? Yeah.
McPhee. I can't think of his name right now.
Well, we do have, I had what we call it? Where didn't they call it? There's certain names, Sabrosa. You do this, you have somebody followed who you think is cheating on injuries and got a false workman's comp claim.
Well, Spy used to do that, didn't they?
Yeah, they did, but
part of the Spy team that did that.
Yeah, and it usually took a chief's to sign off on it, but a captain recommendation, chief sign off on it when you felt they were taking advantage, right? And the way I looked at it, and Bert said it, that's why our insurance rates are so high. I said, hey, one of the reasons, because somebody asked me, well, why are you so tough on these guys? Because I was kind of tough on that. It's like, hey, it's because when somebody's really hurt. When they're really hurt, I don't want the bank to be empty for the guy who's really hurt, right? Or the guy
You're right.
Who's really hurt.
And I think it's a stab in the back to all of us that had regular injuries on the department.
Yeah.
Because it makes you look bad. Because back then, you tell people you got a back injury, and they're like, "Oh, really?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they kind of look at you side-eyed because of people like that gave you a bad name. I got
people that
my lower back.
Somebody fell out of their chair.
Yeah.
You remember that? Somebody had fallen out of their chair and claimed a back injury.
Yep.
And it's funny that I never felt like they looked at the right people. I know before I retired, I had disc replacement in my neck.
Yeah.
And pretty big surgery.
Yep.
Obviously you can't fake that. And I went back to work. And I think I'd been back 2 months or more. And the integrity people came and knocked on my door. And my husband, Bert, was home. And they were looking for me. And he said, well, of course, he played with them a little bit. And he said, well, she's not here. And finally, he said, you might want to go look at her office. She's back to work and has been for months.
Yeah.
But that integrity team was retirees that came back for the 120-day thing.
Right.
So I think it was more, oh, hey, we know Kim. She's already back to work, but we'll go knock on her door anyway to make it, we're doing our job.
Yeah, there is this thing where you just checking.
Yeah.
Snaps people too, right? And because I have been injured several times, but it was only my last one where I actually spent time off, and heck, I couldn't hear in my left ear anymore because of the injuries. So, and
did you take a medical retirement?
I did. Eventually, I got a medical retirement. Yeah, I jacked up my neck and my hearing, and I finally have been a year without a severe vertigo attack. So I think
vertigo sucks.
And I can't hear. Once I got, because I had a side whiplash thing, and it just damaged the hearing in my left ear. I could barely hear. My beautiful wife is upstairs. It's not selective hearing, honey. I really can't hear in my left ear if I don't have my hearing aids in now. So
hey, I got new hearing aids. I never took the medical retirement because I knew that I was too active. I still could do things, and I did yoga. My 8mm and 6mm disc bulges are now 2 and a 4 from doing different stretches, different things. But also my shoulder surgery and the hearing. You name it. But I never took one. Because I knew I wasn't going to give up golf. I wasn't going to give up bodybuilding. and I was going to do everything I can to stay healthy the rest of my life. And
Oh,
I didn't want somebody
I'm
saying,
still.
"Hey,
This is what the workman's comp doctor told me. He says, you know what, you have to keep doing all this stuff because
Yeah.
your skeleton, your body's breaking down, so you have to work, even though
you're right."
whether you get your disability pension or not, you need to do what you can to stay active, stay mobile, and stay as healthy as possible because your body's still going to keep breaking down. But if you strengthen it, you keep it strong, that's what I do. Even though I got one, that's what I do. Hey,
Well,
we
you
had to
have
catch.
to.
Let's show Frost, and this is when they show Frost and the wires here, you begin to realize that it's somebody that's really close to Danny, and Frost. I think he gets a chance to leave. He gets exchange here, and he leaves, and there he is, right there, that actor there. But you begin to realize that it is probably somebody very close to Danny, and he was like hero worship in the beginning scene, right? Oh, great job again, Dan. Great job, and but they're starting to hear people on the wiretaps, and Danny is starting to put it together, and he realizes that a lot of the people involved are your friends, and they're still trying to find a way in to take Danny out, right? That's what they're still trying to do. Oh, we have from King's Portal, we got a $5 for Pop Culture Minefield. Thanks you much. Totally unrelated. I wanted to ask the chief, what are y'all thoughts on the interlocking system for DUI offenders? I always watch when you all do films. I love it. Okay, well, hey, I think what you're talking about is where you have to press the button for the DUI guys. Whatever keeps the drunk out of the car is good for me, right? And I know it's funny because when I started in work and on the sheriff's department, DUIs were not taken as seriously, but they progressed over time with Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. And not only are they taken much more seriously for the public, they are almost a death sentence for your career in law enforcement now, because you're gonna do 30 days off. If you're a little argumentative, you're gonna probably lose your job.
Yep.
And right, and then it's like 15 to 20,000 in court costs if you get prosecuted, and so it's a killer. But I think if you're talking about the system where you have to push the button to open a car or have some kind of device to be able to start your car, I agree with those things. I'm okay with that, because if you're drunk and you can't, because what happens when you drink, you lose your cognitive ability. So if your cognitive ability doesn't allow you to think about how to start the car, then you're calling an Uber. And here's the thing: since with Uber and Lyft, we've probably seen, it's my perception, this probably helped reduce a lot of DUI accidents. Just my thought. I don't have data on that. What do you guys think?
Well, I agree.
I agree.
Gotta keep them off
Well,
the road.
and because of Uber and Lyft now, there's no excuse to keep driving when you're impaired.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And I unfortunately, when I was still working, I had this deputy. He went down to Hollywood. He lived way up in Lancaster. He had this hot, like a Hellcat kind of car, one of those. And he drove home at like 3 a.m, and he had HBD, had been drinking with his wife, and they were working a ton of overtime. He worked a ton of overtime, and I had to give him. I think I gave him 10 days off, and I said, did you ever hear? Obviously you're not going to take a lift all the way to Lancaster, but there's a thing called a hotel. You get a hotel. There are a lot of great hotels.
Yeah.
I mean, think of the cost of the hotel versus the court cost you're going to pay.
No shit.
15, 20 grand.
Yeah, and your
If he
career.
was in an accident, the cost.
Yeah, and then the mark on your career. I mean, it just doesn't make sense, right? And
Nope.
and he ended up getting something else going on too. So he had some problems, and I was trying to work on him. I think he turned it around, but definitely wasn't engaged in the gray matter there when he was making some decisions, even in just planning out the night, let alone once he started drinking. So hey, let's roll right into the scene, insurance fraud. And it's interesting that the bad guys end up shooting the computer where they're getting all the information, because they're listening to him as he's figuring this out, right? And some areas don't have Uber and Lyft. Yeah, you're right. Some areas, but you got to plan it out, dude. You got to plan it out. If you're going to go party, spend the night, sleep it off in your car, I guess, and before you drive home, stop as I do. I'm going to be there 3 hours. I have a drink, and then I have 2 hours of water. So then I'm sober before I go home. I know it's kind of boring, but hey, they don't know. If you get a little soda water and put a little lime in it, just say it's it's a vodka tonic, right? Nobody knows. They don't know. You're still part of the party, but they don't know that you're just sobering up. So he figures it out. So and here's our guy, bingo, you figured it out, and I like this character actor, John. He's the guy who plays the head of the IAB.
Yeah, J.T. Walsh.
J.T. Walsh. He does a good guy, and I think I liked him more in a few Good Men. He was excellent in that movie, right?
Mhm.
And I mean, I liked him in Good Morning Vietnam as well, where he plays the kind of the guy that has the stuck-up kind of sergeant, or the guy the hard case sergeant with running the DJ kind of outfit for Vietnam. So, and here's the other thing is, Sabian's beginning to figure this out too. He kind of is thinking ahead too, like Danny's. He's thinking ahead, and he's kind of doing this, and he understands that there's some of these guys are corrupt around him as well. So, what do you think, John? What do you think of the scene?
I mean, it's acting. No, they figured it out. I figured it out earlier, only because I knew the bad guy was the same one from City Confidential.
So that's what I call that TV ESP, right? So
yep. And you see that picture right there that you have?
Yeah.
Where that was when, remember, you don't lie, or you lie, but you only go a certain way. Sabian had brought in that guy who supposedly was the informant,
right?
But he really wasn't.
Right.
And everything was kosher. He got all the info until Samuel Jackson asked him a certain question. And he couldn't answer it right. And that's when he knew the guy was a fake. So that's like Kim said, you don't want to do stuff that you're going to get in deep shit for. Because you just blow the whole thing.
Yeah.
You do see this relationship between Sabian and Danny. It's developing. And Danny writes out his list of things. Okay, here's all my list of things as he brings that alleged informant in. You go, okay, that matches. So he's kind of spinning it around on Sabian, and I don't think it really holds it against him, because they are developing this level of respect, Kim, between these two characters.
It's the only way out.
Yeah.
But I guess he's like, all right, I've done this before. I have to expect that Sabian's going to do it to me, right? And it doesn't really hold it against him, because he knows it's coming sooner or later.
Well, and Sabian, he got away with it until Paul Giamatti, the fraud guy, saw on the computer that Nate was the informant. And then that's where the where did you go to college came in. And that's what burned him.
Yeah, and they're supposed to have played football there, John. I thought these guys were two kind of small guys for playing football, but I think that's what the sport was. I'm going, okay.
You know who that actor is right there?
What was that? Yeah,
that guy that played the fake guy. He ended up later playing the coroner on CSI Vegas for several years, and he is crippled. He is handicapped. And what's funny is Nate, who got killed in the beginning, he ended up being the head cop on CSI Vegas.
That's right.
Oh, okay.
So everything's kind of intertwined. And plus, the name they gave him was Wayne Grow. Well, if you watch the movie Heat with Pacino and De Niro,
he plays
guy who wants to kill.
Yeah, if you watch enough of these movies, there are throwbacks to other movies, right? And I have noticed that. And I think I did Maltese Falcon. I can't remember the current movie that was a throwback to Maltese Falcons, but it's as I'm watching more and more of these cop shows, and then they'll use similarities, they'll weave in little similar plot twists that you get accustomed to seeing, And I really like when I have Buzz on, because they weave in a lot of the same similarities with the Gangster Squad on all of those movies, but they use that stuff in it. But it's they'll take it out of historical context though, just to make it work sometimes. But
yeah, the years are off. Or remember the one that got killed by Mickey Cohen, his henchman?
Yeah.
He was still alive 40 years later because Buzz knew him.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. But I hope Buzz is doing well. Okay. And so the next scene is all your friends, right? So Danny's figured this out, and here's our informant, and he figures out that's a lie, but he now knows that they're gonna take him out. I mean, because they gotta end this. The bad guys who were involved, they have to. Here's the scene where they showed that it was his friend who was actually in the informant, and Danny's getting too close, and they're going to do something. And I think Danny knows that, right? Samuel L. Jackson knows that, and Sabian knows that, right? And because the FBI rolls in, this was the unbelievable part, Kim. The FBI rolls in, we're taking over as of today. Get out of here, right?
That's you guys screwed up.
Yeah,
you guys screwed up. That's not going to happen, right? With a major department like Chicago PD, LAPD, the LA County Sheriff's Department, NYPD, because they're going to recognize, one, they don't have that kind of capacity that quickly, right? Even as this took several hours still to muster that capacity for the FBI. And it's the same thing with the chief. Chief, are you in charge? Right? You now own it. Oh, do I really want to take this mess?
right.
Right? You now own it, and they now in charge. And I mean, if I'm the special agent in charge, unless I'm being ordered to, I'm going to say, we're going to monitor, we're staying out of this. But in reality, they end up stepping in to take charge of this situation. And their hook is it's a federal building.
Yeah,
they probably had to write that into the script.
I'm sure they did.
It just wouldn't have worked, right? And remember, and what is that a throwback to? Remember, or I don't know if it was happening before this. When did John McClane's first movie? What was
the Nakatomi building?
Yeah, remember that, 93, and
it was early 90s.
Yeah, it was early 90s. So that's a little bit of a throwback to that. We're gonna take over. You guys are blowing it, and and then they go all Vietnam on this thing. They're gonna blow the building up, and the terrorists knew that's what they were going to do. I'm going, okay, I mean, I enjoy the Die Hard series, but that was completely unrealistic, right?
Well, let's face it. If the FBI had taken over in the beginning, it would have been super screwed up. So,
absolutely,
that deal. They always do.
Yep.
I'm just my personal opinion.
So here's what they do. They take over, and this is the other part that was unbelievable. But it reminded me of the Randy Weaver situation. Remember that situation? Remember?
Yeah.
Up in I think it was Montana or Idaho.
Yeah, Idaho.
And they take over. The FBI takes over Martina. And let's roll the full breach where they said shoot on sight. Now I thought of the Randy Weaver situation just because it was an interesting situation. I don't know if we lost Martine or not, but so what had happened was the U.S. Marshals go to serve this warrant and try to get Randy Weaver incarcerated. And he has his family there, right? And the executives in D.C. rewrite their engagement orders, right? They're forcing, so, and they basically say if you see anybody with a rifle, you can shoot them. That's essentially what the FBI did. And in the end, they ended up shooting the son,
his wife,
right? The son,
the
wife, the dog, I guess, or that was killed by the marshal early on. And the fact that they rewrote their rules of engagement for this one event was shocking to me, because generally your rules of engagement are fairly broad and should be able to cover. But to be able to rewrite it and suggest, okay, if they have a gun in their hands, you can shoot them. And I think they took a lot of heat for that. I think they got sued and they paid out a lot of money.
They paid a lot.
Yeah, and so when I saw this scene, all right, we're going to do full breach right now, and as soon as they take over, and shoot on sight. That's exactly what I thought of. That's never going to happen, right, Kim? Shoot on sight.
No.
And that's going to be, everybody at the command post is going to be talking about what we need to do, how we're going to handle this, and then the decision made. It won't be just one guy saying, okay, full breach today, we're going to shoot on sight. Not going to happen. That's
Right.
completely unrealistic. Doesn't matter what agency is in charge. That's just not going to happen, right?
Right.
So what'd you think of my Randy Weaver comment? Are you familiar with that situation, John, where they rewrote the rules of engagement?
Oh, I remember it very well. Ruby Ridge, I think is.
Yeah, Ruby Ridge.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah, I remember it very well. That's another FBI screw up.
And and all I could think of is these are the guys that they do oversight. I mean, they do oversight over local law enforcement, right? And yet, when faced with a very complicated, dynamic situation, they rewrote the rules of engagement incorrectly, and that led to people's deaths.
Yep.
And none of them got prosecuted.
No.
Oh, and wasn't Ruby Ridge after Waco? With the
No, I think
it was before Waco.
It was before
okay.
Waco,
And they screwed that up
another
too.
Screw up Waco.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know if I blame the FBI on that one, because that was ATF. They lost
DOJ.
and they lost the what they lose. They lost the element of surprise, and they decided to go in anyways, and that was their mistake. And I remember, I think some of our SWAT guys, they reached around the country for an audit or a review of what happened in Waco, and I think they tapped into some of the higher the municipalities or the local SWAT guys that had a lot of experience to help that. And that was the big criticism. You lost the element of surprise. Why did you go in? You should have waited them out, right?
Well,
and especially since they knew they had high-powered weapons.
Yeah.
But time was on their side. They weren't a threat to ATF at that point. Time was definitely on their side, and they rushed it.
You're absolutely right. That's the key. Time's on your side. You can take all week to talk to them.
And I guess that's one of the things we need to. I should have hit you up to. That is probably the mantra for most hostage negotiation. Time is on your side, right?
Absolutely.
And only when the behavior of the hostage taker indicates that time is not on your side is when you're pressed to do something a little more assertive or take more aggressive action. In this case, Samuel Jackson is figuring it out. So time is not on the side of our bad guys, right? And they think that there's files at the I think they called him a chief inspector, was our IAB guy, right?
Yeah.
The chief inspector or a deputy inspector. The Detroit police had inspectors. They changed that to a captain's rank after James Craig, former LAPD, went there to become their chief. They got rid of that inspector rank and made it a captain rank. But yeah, so time is on your side. Let's wait. But these guys, they have to kill him because he's got to be the scapegoat.
Find out they're dirty.
Yeah, they're going to find out. He's going to be their scapegoat. So Kevin Spacey manages to get him out of the building, and if I remember correctly, he crawled through the heating duct. Now, I'm sorry, Samuel L. Jackson, not a small guy. Even if they're industrial things, I just don't see that happening. But
and he had on SWAT gear because he dressed down the one officer that everybody thought he had killed. Yep. And put on his uniform. So now he's got on SWAT gear on top of his size.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you see when he leaves to go get in Spacey's car, he drops all the gas mask and everything in the trash and jumps in the car. Right. But yeah, he never would have got through that crawl space.
No.
Yeah. And how do you figure it out? I mean, think about the ventilation system for a 20-story building. How do you figure and how do you get down? Would he just slide down a big vent? Anyway, so he was what?
He repelled.
Oh, he repelled.
He repelled down the side of the building.
I forgot. He's an expert in everything. So
see?
Yeah, that's right.
So I know, Kim, when you go on your hostage negotiation, you have your repelling rope just in case, right? So
you never know.
You never know, right?
You never know.
Okay, so they end up at the inspector's house, and they don't have any files there. They can't find anything, so they pull the scam on Frosty, who ends up coming into the house, and they pretend like they have it, and they tape record or they record Frosty, and this was of course all cinematic stuff, admitting to what was going on, and at the same time broadcasting it out for all the folks outside of his house to hear. So they got 100 cops outside, and they all hear what's going on. And we can roll that scene. Do you like Westerns? Now, I got to ask this question. I did not know this, John. Shane. I did not know, and I had seen the movie Shane, I don't know, 25 times, that he was wounded at the end. I did not know
You
that.
didn't know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, when he's in the shootout, he goes into the bar, and Brandon DeWilla is still trying to find him, running after him. But he goes in there, and you've got Jack Palance, who's a phenomenal actor and a great American. He draws down, kills him, and he kills the guy at the bar. Well, he doesn't realize, and the head guy, he kills him. He doesn't realize the brother of the head guy is up top. And he hears him, and he turns, and he shoots, but he gets hit. And then when he's walking away, he's riding away, his arm's down. You can see blood dripping off his arm.
Yeah, for whatever reason, and they said, this is what they said at the beginning of the film, Shane died, right? Shane dies. And I'm like, and I was looking it up online. I go, wow, some of the people said, some of the, film buffs saying Shane did die, Shane didn't die, all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, I got to rewatch that movie now because I messed up that whole last scene. I didn't see it, right?
Yeah, that was one of the greatest movies made. I love that movie.
Well, yeah, and who played the dad? He's a great character actor.
Van Heflin.
Van Heflin. He's a great guy. So I don't know, Kim, if you're into Westerns or not, but I grew up watching Westerns, and I go,
I like Westerns, but that one, maybe it was before my time. You guys might be,
Oh, Dad, you did not go there. Oh my God.
I was 5. John was 15. I know.
And you must have gotten new hearing aids. You actually heard what I said.
I tell you, it's a great movie. Great movie. Very well done.
So the interesting thing about the end is Frosty does kind of pull it. Oh, wait a minute. So Sabian ends up shooting Danny to pretend like he's killed him. Frosty thinks he's dead. He goes outside, and they of course heard everything, right? But Frosty pulls his gun and somebody ends up having to shoot him too, right? I think it was our SWAT lieutenant did it. I think I can't remember who shot him now.
Yeah.
And I think he survives though, right? But and they figured it out, and a lot of the guys who were on the SWAT team, and so here I guess we got to do the scam. So they would pretend like they're hurt, they would file a claim, and then allegedly Danny was on the board, and he would vote to give the money based on that claim, and they were all enriching themselves. Now I do have to think, okay, well, this is Chicago. So maybe they have this strong union thing where they get this oversight, but that just wouldn't happen here in LA. I just don't.
No.
I can see corruption happen, but not like that. Not like that at all. So I enjoyed the movie, Kim. Thanks for recommending it. And I appreciate you coming on my show.
Well, thanks for having me. Yeah, it was for enjoyment purposes only. There's not a whole lot of good cop movies that are believable.
But it's a wham bam. There's action through the entire show.
Yeah.
So that's why people like it.
Yeah, and then putting the pieces together, how Danny was set up, and it was good. It was good entertainment.
Well, King Protocol, I did like the modern Western 310 to Yuma, but you know what? I also like the first one. The
original I like better.
And I just saw a clipping from that the other day, John, the original, and I can't think of who the main actor in there. Glenn Ford? Was it Glenn Ford who was the main actor?
Glenn Ford was the bad guy.
Yes.
Was the gang leader. And I believe Van Heflin was the
Van Heflin, yeah. He was the farmer who was trying to take him. That's where I remembered him from. So Van Heflin and and Glenn Ford, and it was in the remake, it was who's the actor that played in Gladiator?
The guy that played Batman. Played the farmer.
Bale,
Christian Bale. Yeah.
Christian Bale, and then the guy that played the main bad guy was the guy in Gladiator. What's his name?
Exactly.
The Australian
His
guy.
name.
Oh, Russell Crowe.
Russell
see,
Crowe. Yep.
The lady would remember. That's it. She would remember, right? You know.
At least
Russell
I had an
Crowe.
answer to one of your movies.
Yes. All right, guys. Hey, thank you so much for joining me on Morning Coffee with the Chief. Kim, I'm glad you could finally make it. I've asked her a few times, and
too.
her and Bert are always traveling. I will say hello to my beautiful wife for you, and say hello to your husband for me. And
Absolutely.
we want to thank King Portical. Thank you for coming on and commenting during the show, and your
Good show.
And
Yeah,
we'll call him movie bucks that you gave us. John, thank you for joining us. And Martine, I think we are about ready. You can take it away. Stick around for debrief, guys.